Kyle Wright is out of St. Ignatius, and he owns Celtic Winter Development. He's one of our technical assistance providers as well, and he has a lot of expertise in this area. So he's going to lead us through this three-part session. This is part one, so hopefully we see you all for part two and three as well, where we really get to dive in a little deeper. But I'm going to turn it over to Kyle, and we will dive into the workshop. But thank you all for joining today.
Right on, Wes. Thank you so much. Well, welcome everybody. We're going to be doing a little workshop, more of an intro to AI today. It's going to be part of a three-part workshop, as Wes said. And today we're going to be talking about making AI simple, kind of understanding what it is, how you can use it in your business, some ideas on how it works. And then on our next workshop, we're going to be gearing up to practice writing the perfect prompt, practice using it a little bit more. And then the third installment of this will actually be going through some practical applications and real use case scenarios that we can try out for your business that we can all do hands-on. So let's go ahead and jump into it. I can, next slide here. All right, so I wanted to talk a little bit about why AI matters for your small business. It's already a big part of your daily life. You're likely already using it without realizing it every day. There's obviously a lot of practical benefits for small business and different things that you can do to utilize it. And what I actually wanted to jump into a little bit was, first off here, my next page, thank you. Just some different examples about what's out there. Everybody probably has heard of ChatGPT. They may have heard of Gemini and some of the other ones. You've heard maybe Canva, DALL-E, some of these other ones popping up. So I just kind of wanted to break these down into a couple of different categories first off. Number one category that we have out there is going to be the ones that everybody is familiar with. These are going to be our text-based AIs. ChatGPT, DeepSeek, Gemini, and Claude are some of the biggest ones out there. And these are what are called LLMs, or language learning models. These are all about writing, customer service, text-based things. A lot of people are using them for a variety of reasons, but these are going to be most of your text-based, rewriting your email or coming up with different ideas on how to work out a marketing plan or really anything that is going to be text. I myself use it to write email, some ideas for website content, even meal planning. I came up with an idea for a week of meal planning with my wife last week, and we budgeted it all out and got a whole bunch of ideas just with ChatGPT alone. The second big category that most people use or are familiar with is going to be your image and design AI. People have probably used Canva. Is just a little bit easier to use version of Photoshop. It's great for design work, things like that. And they have been integrating a lot of AI tools in theirs as well. For example, you may have used their image art generator, or everybody's seen things that pop up by Midjourney or DALL-E, which is ChatGPT's version of an art creator. And we've all seen examples of AI art out there from a variety of things. There are so many applications that people can use to actually create art and video and all these kind of things. That these are just some of the top ones. That's our second category. The third category of AI that most people are going to be familiar with is going to be your analyzers. These are going to be the AI that looks over analytics. For example, Google Analytics is starting to integrate more of theirs, or analyzing data. You've probably experienced AI with a chatbot, or if you maybe in a job or something like that, you've been able to see different predictive models that they're using to forecast sales trends or things like that. Customer insights. Hey, why are my customers doing where they are? Or we've all seen the videos of, watching a football game, and Amazon Analytics pops up and they talk about percentage chances to be able to calculate the catch in the end zone or whatever it is. These are all the different kind of analysis and taking data and kind of using it to tell a story through AI. And then the fourth kind of AI is going to be your Google Assistant, Siri, Alexa, more your voice recognition and automation. A lot of people, the smart speakers, whether it's, or Siri on your phone or whatever it is, we're starting to see that AI integrate itself more into the voice assistants as well. Now, a lot of these different applications and systems are going to be, hand in hand work with others. For example, Dolly is part of ChatGPT. ChatGPT now also has a voice function, so on and so forth. Because a lot of people think, when they think AI, most everybody just tends to think, oh, ChatGPT, I'm going to go on, or some kind of, if you've seen the Marvel movies, you're familiar with the concept of the Jarvis or the personal assistant or something like that, that is there to take all of your information or everything you give it and spit out helpful, useful things and kind of act in that personal assistant way. And so I wanted to make it apparent that when we're talking about artificial intelligence, we don't always mean AI in that thinking kind of Skynet brain that we all kind of have in our minds. There's artificial intelligence can look so many different ways. And so as we continue to further our research into this field, where it's going to keep evolving and changing all the time. We'll get into that a little bit more here later on in the slides. But these are some of these different examples of what it could mean when you say AI. So you can remember that it's not just ChatGPT. All right, so I want to go through and talk a little bit about what AI like ChatGPT is and also what it isn't. There's a lot of misconceptions out there about what it is. And I personally believe that once we have a better understanding of what it is, what its capabilities are, and its limitations, then that actually gives us an opportunity to be able to utilize it more effectively. So it's easy to think for anybody that's used Gemini, ChatGPT, any of these, it responds almost human-like. It seems to understand what we're saying, and it seems to be able to recognize and show empathy and relatability. Now, it's important to keep in mind that AI is not any of those things. It is not a beacon of truth. It doesn't have a brain. It doesn't reason. It also doesn't understand like a human. And it doesn't really have opinions or make decisions. In fact, it is just a pattern recognizer. It literally can only predict what should come next in the sequence of words. A good example on the best way to explain this, if anybody's ever gotten on their phone and gone to type up a text message, and it gets the little predictive text that pops up, your phone's trying to guess which word that you want to say next. The easiest way to explain ChatGPT is it's basically just that, with 10,000, a million times more data and context behind it. ChatGPT's only goal as an LLM is to predict the next word in a sequence based on what is most likely to be what you're expecting. This is why we've been able to, you've probably gone in where it gives you some kind of misinformation and you tell it that it is incorrect and it immediately changes its mind. It tells you that you're right. It does not have bias or opinion. Or it's also not a fact checker. If we were to go in and say, hey, what's 2 plus 2? It would recognize it's been asked enough times that 2 plus 2 equals 4. But if we told ChatGPT that that's incorrect and it actually does equal 5, it would agree with us because that's what it does. It just has the information to try and predict what the best response is, most likely based on the past data. And also doesn't know facts. It can just repeat. It's looking for patterns, essentially. I think we've all had examples of where it's given us misinformation or completely had just gone off the rails totally, which it absolutely can do because, once again, it's just a predictive model. So this is a good place to pause for a moment and kind of open it up to questions, whether either to you guys or anybody out there in Zoom land that has any questions for us.
We do have one question.
Okay.
Valerie Root says she's concerned about spying that these models essentially do.
Yeah, that's a great question. When it comes to security, I mean, while I'm not a cybersecurity expert and I would never try and tell everybody that, yeah, this is totally safe, there's absolutely no harm in anything that can come from your data, I would say that it's probably just as unsafe as any other form of having your data out there. I don't give ChatGPT my social security number and sensitive data that I might be concerned in a leak. But at the same time, in a world that we live in where information is completely shared with our knowledge or not without our knowledge, it's difficult to know to what extent that can go to. So I would just say, the way I would say when it comes to AI, just as with any other internet technology or any technology in general, just exercising that same kind of security and best practices for your safety that you would otherwise. Now, we could get into some of the different ones between DeepSeek. There's been a lot of controversy out of them being a foreign-owned AI versus what's going on with ChatGPT versus Google and Gemini's concerns and so on and so forth. For each person to decide themselves on where they lie on who they trust with their data. But at the end of the day, if the worst were to happen on any kind of leak and any kind of thing, if you're not comfortable with certain data being out there, then that would be the best way to answer it. But I can't disagree with the statement that it does make you a little uneasy in this day and age with technology and the freedom of information, for sure. Do we have any other questions?
Someone asked us about, Siri and Google are the same idea. So just to reiterate that.
Yeah. Siri and Google, it's so Google, Google's AI is Gemini, but then they also have the Google chatbot, the Google Nest systems that people have used. I would say that Siri is a voice assistant, just like a Google voice assistant is, but then Google also has their own smart logic, which is Gemini, which is comparable to Microsoft's ChatGPT or OpenAI, or which part of the conglomerate owns it these days. But yes. Hello, welcome. We've been talking about the use of AI on what it is and what it isn't. And I was just explaining to the group down here about it not being a brain and not really truly being able to understand. And it's more of a model for predictive text being fancy. And so we're going to jump into some different things. Just fill in some questions here if you have any about AI as well. But I think that's an easy thing to try and avoid AI in this day and age. But I think the goal with any kind of technology is the more we understand it and understand its capabilities and what it is and what it isn't, then we can have more confidence utilizing it moving forward. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about some real world applications. Let's see here. We talked about AI in action, some practical examples. Let's talk about marketing and creation and content creation, which is a lot more in my world. What I like to deal with is helping people with this kind of thing. But so with marketing and content creation, what's becoming really popular these days is AI is really good about taking emails, writing social media posts, and even blogs. These are things like, once again, the language learning models like ChatGPT, Cloud, Jasper, Gemini, any of the language models that we've used. Once again, and we'll talk more about this in the building better prompts section in number 2. But when it comes down to what it can do and what it can't do, I usually like to start by creating my own email. It's one thing to just ask ChatGPT to come up, hey, create a blog post for me. Sure, it can do that, but where it really excels is if you give it a whole bunch of things that you want it to do, and you're able to give it a large list of parameters. Hey, this is my stone and tile, or tone and style. I really want it to sound like, you give it examples of pieces of writing that you can give it. But the more examples that you can give it, since you understand that that's how it works, when you really can craft it that way, that is where ChatGPT and things like that really begin to excel on being able to meet your expectations. If you give it a broad, open statement of, hey, I want an email, well, that could mean almost literally anything. And so using it to create, blog posts, hey, I want to find a blog post, or wanted to create a social media post for my business where I do this, and my goal for the week is to bring in 10 new clients and have them engage with things, or I want people asking me questions, or I want people visiting me. Whatever your intent is with what you're trying to get people to do, if you explain that to ChatGPT or any of the language learning models to create a prompt, then you're more likely to get a more fleshed out idea of what you're looking for. And then from there, you can always tweak it and tone it down. AI is also really good at generating some good logos, graphics, things of that nature. Now, that being said, there's something I wanted to talk about a little bit that I talk to a lot of my graphic designers and my people in the art field with, is we have started to see a lot of AI art and content kind of starting to flood the market. And one of the things that happens from an SEO perspective, which SEO stands for search engine optimization, when you type in a word on Google, like if I typed in Cadillacs near me, it's going to pop up the nearest Cadillac dealership. It's the most relevant search. So Google is always trying to make sure that they are serving up the most relevant results for everything you serve. It's what makes them, got them to the top. What you probably have noticed these days is you go and type in anything in Google. Now, you're obviously getting the AI summed up response as to where it's basically ChatGPT has scoured the web and feeding it through some of the, or Gemini's, I think it's when you use Google, and they're answering your question at the top. Because if you start to go through a lot of the search results and you can see each result moving down, you'll notice they're all going to start to look the same. And it all has that same kind of feel, like it was written by somebody who wanted to be human, but just isn't quite there yet. And this has come from lazy marketing and content creation, to where it's so easy to just go, hey, ChatGPT, write my blog post for me. Or, hey, I need some content for my website. So you chop it into ChatGPT and it pumps out a whole bunch of information for your website. You think that's awesome. I've got all the words. I don't have to do any creative writing now. But unfortunately, and you can even have ChatGPT optimize it for SEO so that I'm ranking for this, and there's so many things you can do. Well, if everybody's doing that, then there's really nothing unique anymore about content. And so the more and more that we continue to just fluff the internet full of AI-generated content, we're noticing that our search degradation is starting to deteriorate. Because most of the things that these models like ChatGPT were trained on were user data and input. There's a reason why Reddit went public, and all the data was able to be bought and trained. Like that's where a lot of, if you've ever gone on Reddit and explored around, there's a kind of a cadence and a tone you'll kind of see responded in ChatGPT sometimes. That's because a lot of ChatGPT's information on what it knows and what it's been trained on has come from Reddit and the internet. So user submitted things. So you've got a computer that's trying to replicate human internet speech, and that's where it gets its information from. But now the internet is being generated with AI information that the AI is now using to try and sound more human. And it's just this never-ending cycle of information. And so it started off getting smart, but now it's making itself dumber. Which is one of the things we can do as small business owners, people that are going to be putting up websites and creating these kind of content, is by using ChatGPT for the tool that it is. Not so much to create all the content you need, but as an assistant, maybe writing prompts, getting you ideas, check your grammar, work on steps. Hey, how can I improve my writing? But if we're not going forth and actively trying to convey what we're trying to use in our business, hey, we've got a example of Taylor, who does the jewelry, it's Jonathan that does the Little Doug Silver, the jewelry. What's going to make people want his jewelry is his unique story, his experience, and his tone, and what he wants to convey. Any other jeweler that's using ChatGPT, they all sound great. If I want that, I'll go to Costco at the end of the day. I'll go get any kind of jewelry from that, because that's going to be, just the same kind of repeated commercial thing. That's fine. But the things that make small business owners unique are our stories, what we bring to the community, what our warts and all, things that make us, our feelings, our successes, our dreams, and that relatable feel of small business. And so utilizing ChatGPT to enhance and reinforce that's what can make ChatGPT such a powerful tool, rather than just using it to create everything for you. Another example of where a lot of people could be using it, especially these days, I worked with a group of tour operators. With the last company that I worked with is Thomas, based out in Missoula. They're a digital marketing agency that specifically works with tour operators. And if you run a tour operating group and looking for a way to increase your business, they themselves do a great job. They've got a bunch of people, but they have actually come out with their own AI chatbot as well, to where that they've trained it on data. They can train on your questions, make it unique to your business, so that when people come in, they go to your website, they want to have questions about making a reservation or something like that about your product. These chatbots are a really great way to save on time for customer service. Now, they shouldn't replace a full-blown customer service agency, because there's something about being able to pick up the phone and call somebody and get help. And that's great for people. But a lot of the questions, hey, I can't find on the website, I just type into that little chat that pops up that we're used to seeing. That's another use case of AI in our lives. And as a business owner, utilizing tools like that to be able to provide basic information like what time my hours are, or yes, I do sell more than this one size of smoothie, or whatever it may be. Those are kind of the basic, just as something that like an FAQ section on your website can get you. So another good example of AI powered is the appointment scheduling. Being able to use Calendly, there's TidyCal. There's all sorts of different applications that people are using to be able to book application or book time for services for your business. Because I think anybody who engages in services of any kind in small business knows how much of a pain in the butt it is to get people to be able to make an appointment. It seems to just be, and then remind people to show up to the appointment on time and all that kind of stuff. So that would be another good example of what AI is kind of learning to be able to do. And it's a good example of something that's not just, ChatGPT, just another example. Another one further down the road is operations and efficiency. These are going to be a little bit more specialized for later on as you're looking at trends and kind of what your business does and looking back on that kind of stuff. Like, for example, I like to go through my clients with our website status, and we look at the trends of Google Analytics every month, where we break down, hey, who's visiting your website? Where are they coming from? How do they discover? What are they doing once they get there? And what's stopping them from completing a purchase, or so on and so forth. AI is incredibly good at that. I call it telling stories through data, so we can understand the customer's journey, or a variety of different things on that. AI can take a lot of the data there, and it can identify trends and patterns. After all, it is literally a pattern identification machine. Very meta, it is what it is. Being able to use pattern recognition to identify patterns turns out is incredibly useful. And so as we continue to get further along in the AI world, as we get new ideas and deeper research and things like that all the time, some of our tools that, insights into how our shop is performing, and improvements and suggestions and things that we can do better to get more eyes on our business are going to keep improving all the time. So before I kind of keep going on some of those other bits, I think we should pop questions again. I think real world applications is a good spot for questions if we have any.
So we do have one more question
Mhm.
concerning the possibility of scams that are becoming more and more prevalent
Absolutely.
using AI. Just wondering what your
Sure.
thoughts on that.
Yeah, I'd like to hear from the person asking the question if they wanted to clarify any more about, like, specifically what kind of scam. Do they just mean in okay.
Kyle, this is Sharon Patterson, and I work for Mineral County Economic Development Corp in Superior, Montana.
Right on.
And I guess my main question is, we're getting so many scams now that are so real. How can we, as an organization, inform our customers and our clients as to what they can look for in a scam caused by AI through chat or whatever, how they want to? It's just a big concern of ours and also of our community, because we have such a retired community and business community that people are getting taken to the cleaners by these scams.
So that, Sharon, thanks for bringing it up. That's a great question. And I think it can bring us up into a topic of discussing kind of some of the things to watch out for and some of the dangers of, if it sounds like what you're saying as well, is that the increased usage of AI has made it even easier for scammers to increase the realism of these scams. And so as we continue to move forward with AI getting better and smarter all the time, there's definitely going to be an increase of, bad actors and people being able to utilize, these great methods to be able to scam people easier. And I honestly, in my experience with technology over the past 20, 30 years, as we've been watching all sorts of advancements from, the iPhone to AI, each one has brought its unique challenges when it comes to people misusing technology for malicious reasons. I think they even have a whole TV show about it called Black Mirror that talks about, you know, how humans can misuse potential things like that. When it comes specifically to fighting scams, and one of the ways that we can watch out for that, funny enough, I actually use AI to fight back with it. I have an assumption anytime I get any kind of text message on my phone that isn't from a number I don't know, or any kind of call, or any kind of email that I'm not expecting, I personally just assume that it's spam or a scam all the time. I don't trust anything on the internet unless it's proven to me that it's not the case. But if ever there's a moment where, like, I got one the other day that was I think it was the USPS package pickup. And I actually was expecting a package. The timing worked out on that, so that was sorry. But I never have gotten text before. I'm looking at it going, well, that's weird timing, and I'm not going to take the link out and click on it myself because that's just not what I do. However, I took a screenshot of it and I fed it to ChatGPT. I said, hey, take a peek at this for me. What do you think? Said, hey, it's most likely a scam because this, and this. I said, do some, and I had to go a little bit further. I said, do some research, see if you can find any other examples of it being on the internet. Due to ChatGPT's ability to search the internet nowadays, it did. And it found other examples on Reddit of people sharing the exact same text message with the exact same link and reporting scam, which just confirmed what I was pretty positive was there already. But I think one of the ways that we can use AI, like I said, to fight back against the AI is that use it as a BS detector. When in doubt, ChatGPT is going to have a pretty good idea, or Gemini, or any of the ones you want. Go, hey, if you do a screenshot or describe what it's in it, or copy and paste the information over the verbiage on into it, or however you want to get it to it without clicking on the link. But yeah, running a double check and asking it what it thinks. And most of the time, it's going to probably think it is because they usually are. But that would be the thing that I would say is that anytime you get something that you're worried about, run it through ChatGPT to give it a double check. And I mean, if it can make it, it can pretty much spot it. I don't think that, yeah. But.
I think it's important to remember that AI isn't making the scam. People are still making the scam.
Once again, that's a great way to put it. I think that really hits the proverbial nail on the head. Is AI doesn't make the scam. People use AI as a tool to make the scam, and that is the same thing with anything AI. AI itself is not creating; it is just repeating patterns and looking for things like that. So utilizing the information to be able to fight back, or to verify, or to double check. Because unfortunately, there's just no cure-all in this world of, craziness is scams and things like that keep happening all the time. But as they continue to get more real, yeah, I think using the very litmus test of what created it is probably the way that I would recommend Pius. Kind of a long-winded explanation to talk about that, but that's a really good one to bring up because, I mean, you see, I think the easiest way that people get fooled by AI these days is probably the deepfake videos and things like that we're able to see. But given AI's ability to replicate visual scams as well as not just the text ones, it can create just a whole new revenue of fear in our minds. And yeah, it's a tough one, and it's definitely not going to get any easier for sure. Some different costs. I don't want to talk about the cost of AI. It's not terribly expensive, nor even is there. There's plenty of free options out there. So one of the concerns I've heard people pop up and say, as I talked about, hey, why are you using this? And I go, oh, it's expensive. I don't know if I want to sign up and pay for that. Well, the beauty of it is with AI is that it's a great time to be learning how to use it. You can sign up with a Google account. You've got Gemini. There's a free version of AI. Personally, I pay for the upgraded version, or the mid-level version. There's a $200 a month version of ChatGPT now that I don't personally even know anybody that it actually would be useful for. Maybe some organization levels on certain kind of things. But what I pay for is I pay for the advanced model. It gives a couple of the different models that are good at different things. There's some models, some of the more advanced reasoning models are good for some code writing, script writing, things like that, better at math problems, etc. But for limited use, ChatGPT with all the models, it does I think there's 30 seconds of video creation per 2 weeks or something like that. And then images, it also does chat history. I can search through, save things, create custom chat GPTs based on if I want to get deeper into something. And they rolled out a feature recently that I've really been enjoying is projects, so that you can basically load files and keep certain different chats, and it stores all the information right up there in a certain project. So if you're working on something, you don't just keep opening up endless amounts of chats like yours truly that I don't even want to know how many chat windows I have in ChatGPT now. If I had to go back and count, it'd probably take me forever. But so now being able to utilize projects, I can keep things all contained within that. And like I said, that's all for $20 a month. But plenty of other budget AI tools. ChatGPT free is the base version. It does amazing things now. Most people right off the bat can't even tell the difference between some of the different ones. And when I talk about ChatGPT being more of an advanced reasoning model, like I said, to clarify, because that's kind of contradicting to what I said earlier about it being actually able to reason and think. There's new versions of AI coming out all the time. Claude yesterday, or Anthropic just came out with a new version of their model. They're calling it their most advanced reasoning either. And they're trying to sell us all on the idea that these models are actually reasoning. But to not go on a huge tangent about, what is the concept? What is even reasoning, and how does the human reasoning work? Because we're actually still discovering that as human beings. And once we discover more about what it means to be a human being and what human reasoning actually means versus computer reasoning, we'll have a better comprehension of it, and then we'll use that to build a better AI. But when I say reasoning, is that some of the new models will take advanced concepts and they'll break it up down into different sections so they can drill down just a little bit deeper, and then so it becomes less spots for error, and so that it can fact check itself, kind of run the series again, double check things, and kind of prompt itself is kind of the way that it works. So when I say reasoning, it's just fact checking repeated on itself. We haven't gotten to a point yet where we've achieved the singularity, as they call it in Tech Valley. There's the moment when people believe that AI will become self-aware. And personally, I believe that that's a different kind of AI model that we're getting to, that, whether we get there in 3 years or 5 years, or if it never happens, it's still a ways off from something that is the LLMs and the language models like ChatGPT that we're looking at right now. But yeah, so there are lots of options on different ones to use. I would urge everyone. Actually, I've got something at the end for that we'll get into in a second. Some of the limitations of AI is just the thoughts and the fears and stuff like the scams. And one is a great one that was brought up. A lot of people are worried that AI is going to start replacing jobs. And we've seen some on social media or news reports or LinkedIn or whatever it is that, AI is going to come in and take over all the jobs or make them obsolete. And once again, as Taylor said earlier, AI doesn't create or think these things. It's people making the choices or creating the content. So, if we start experiencing AI or layoffs due to AI, that's going to be because people are deciding to make cuts and changes and try and look for ways to save money and say that they don't value what humans can bring because all they care about is the bottom line. That'll be the case one way or another, as humans continue to find interventions that save money. Look at the self-checkout scanners at grocery stores and whether that's working or not, versus there's always, we're always going to keep moving forward in as we keep looking for these different kind of things. But with AI, I can't stress this enough that utilizing it as a tool instead of a replacement is really what kind of the most important thing is here, because helping us to do things better as a tool is what AI is going to be designed for, and really where we can use it as small business owners, rather than thinking about what it can replace. Enhancement versus replacement. Another limitation of AI, we talked about this before, AI is always right. AI doesn't know truth. It doesn't know what's right. Even if you're asking it to do things like spell check and whatever, it understands that it's read the word so long, and it has read a whole bunch of content about how to do spell checks. So it's going to give you the next best option based on what it's telling you. But if you, once again, you can convince it of misinformation all the time. If you tell it that you're sure that the word's wrong and that it are right and that it's wrong, it'll agree with you. It doesn't have an opinion. It doesn't care. It just repeats what it's been told. Another concern people have is AI is only for big business. And I talked about this with the analytics and things like that. That's where a lot of your businesses are using analytics or AI more and spending, lots of money on those kind of AI because, data trends and stuff like that. If you can afford to drop $5-10 million on the Super Bowl commercial, you can probably afford another $10 million to see how people reacted to the Super Bowl commercial using AI. And those are the kind of things that they're looking for. But, realistically, as we talked about, there are so many different use cases for AI in our business, whether it's, coming up with marketing materials, marketing plans, ideas for the website, idea generator, brainstorming, double checking, fact checking, any of it. These are all different things that we can do. And as we go through these next 2 workshops, we'll be talking more about how it's actually done, giving examples, and then creating a use case and example for your business where we can actually, hands-on and build something useful in the third one, which should be fun. The future of AI in business, AI is evolving fast. Since preparing this workshop, I've actually had to add and rework things 3 or 4 times due to different models that have come out. Since I originally knew we were going to be doing this, I started putting things together. DeepSeek blew up, and then all of a sudden gave everybody, a bit more push in the race to now where Cloud literally came up with a new model yesterday and new features and deeper explorations literally all the time. So, being able to understand and use it and practice using it in your business now is just going to set you up to, create that foundation to moving forward so that you'll be ready to take advantage of all the updates and opportunities and be aware of things as they're moving forward. As it, just like with any technology, the further along it gets and the more advanced it becomes, the harder it can be to adopt rather than to upgrade over time. Businesses that use AI, they stay ahead of the competitors. It's simple. We talk about this all the time in my world of digital marketing and websites is, how can we make it easier for your client? You don't want somebody having to take 15, 20 steps and a whole lot of confusion to be able to give you money for the thing that you want to give them. And so utilizing AI to help, speed up that process or make it easier, provide solutions for either you or your clients, these pain points are things where I believe it's most useful nowadays. And we talked about before, don't be afraid of it. Use it to your advantage by understanding what it is and how we can utilize it and understand its limitations. It can help that fear. Remove this fear. There's that, we only fear what we don't understand kind of mantra. So some of our next steps, and like I talked about what we'll be doing in the next 2 parts of the workshop, and I've got some homework for everybody that is still interested in reliving some of their school time. But I would encourage everybody, if you haven't already, to try one AI tool. It could be any of the kinds you like. I would recommend starting with something like ChatGPT or Gemini, the language models. Get used to it. Get a familiarity with it. If nothing else, even if you don't plan on using it for your business, learning what it can do and how it sounds. There's a concept that, back to the idea of the scam in AI, and I can address as well. There's something that we've all kind of seen. There's a concept called uncanny valley. And for those that aren't familiar with it is if you've ever seen a human-generated art and you look at it and you go, there's something that's not quite human about it, but you can't quite put your finger on it. Whether that's how that looks, how it sounds, too smooth, extra fingers, even the eyes. It's mostly in the eyes we can see it. Things just aren't quite there. It almost looks robotic. It's just off. It just gives you the willies. Our human sense goes, something's wrong with that. That's what uncanny valley essentially is. It's that feeling of something not quite being human, but we don't quite know why, but we can feel it in our gut. Well, you'll start to recognize how many examples you can go online and be like, oh, ChatGPT wrote that. And I recognize that tone cadence from anywhere. Or just kind of some of that as you start to speak to it, there's different familiarity that you start, like I can spot a chat or an AI generated anything from a mile away. I've used it so much. And so being able to sort through it also helps me become a more discerning customer. If somebody like, oh, look, this is something that somebody wrote, maybe they helped with it local, great. This is all just AI generated. It feels cheap. It feels plastic. It feels unsustainable in this world of too much AI. So going back to my warning about not overusing it, that's an important as well. So jumping on, trying it out, getting exposure to it, seeing what its capabilities are, and see if you can break it, fix it, get it to come up with your next big idea, whatever it is. But use it for a simple task. Write a social post, generate an email, analyze text. Write down any of the challenges or surprises. I'd love to hear some of our success stories, what worked last time, because then for next time, then that way we can actually use those to work on crafting some of the better prompts. We'll be doing a lot of deep diving into some examples, why this worked, why it doesn't, comparing some of the different models. But yeah, and then I would encourage everybody to come with one prompt idea for part 2, crafting the perfect prompt, kind of coming up with some kind of why about why we're doing it or what you're trying to achieve. And we'll be working on honing it down and understanding that a little bit more. For the last 10 minutes, leave it open to just any questions about any of it or anything that you want to bring up.
Yeah, hi, this is Heather. Are you able to hear me?
Sure can. Hi, Heather. Welcome to the Zoom.
Thank you. Hey, my question was kind of in relation to what you were just talking about with you being able to recognize that it's AI.
Sure.
And I had sort of a similar situation in reviewing proposals at one time, and I felt the information was AI generated. And I guess, is there any data or information out there that is showing consumers are accepting of the AI, or if they see something and they're seeing it's AI, that it gives the company, it has like a bad connotation to them?
That's a fantastic question. Thank you for bringing it up. I was having a conversation with somebody about this just a day or two ago. And while I haven't pulled up any supporting data, I don't know the exact numbers. I mean, realistically, we could probably have somebody use ChatGPT to see if it knows of any data right now in real time when we're talking about this. But from my understanding and my experience, here's a good example. I was checking out the Kindle Direct Publishing website the other day. I was playing around with the idea of what it would look like to publish a book of some kind, like an ebook on Kindle Unlimited, and using ChatGPT to create the book and see how close we could get it to sounding human to see if it got any kind of interest on Kindle Unlimited. Kind of a thought experiment for exactly this kind of thing. One of the things I noticed that stood out to me, and it kind of got me thinking about all this, is that in that section, there is a spot where it asks you how much of your book or your cover art or your whole project is generated through artwork or through AI. And so it got me thinking that when we start to see this more as well, whether it's on social media or whatever, these little warnings or information pieces pop up and go, hey, part of this was AI, or this book was done, or here's a whole section of AI, which tells us a couple of things. A, if we have to literally section out a whole part of Kindle Unlimited to specify, hey, this is like a smoke-free zone, so to speak, like you would in a restaurant or something, an AI-free zone over here, and that discerning clients are wanting to avoid that, then that tells us that it does exist. As far as the data, okay. So what do we got here?
So I asked it for positive and negative perception to AI generated content.
All right. So trust and credibility issues. The use of AI-generated content in journalism has raised concerns about accuracy and transparency. So that's probably a big one right there. Is AI? They call it hallucination. It can make stuff up. It can be wrong. Negative information. It can just repeat it. So that can be a big part of it, because negative reception because of the trust and credibility issue. But it's the perceived quality decline. This is an apprehension that the proliferation of AI-generated content may lead to a decline in overall content quality. Well, that's one of the things we were talking about before. So while we don't have any numbers that say 20% of people are less likely to whatever, I think, that's a hard line that it's difficult to come up with that. It would all be fairly speculative. But I think the litmus test on something like that would be pretty simple. How do you feel when you go out to a website? If you can tell something that AI, do you go, wow, I can't believe this is AI, or do you kind of back away because, oh, cool. Okay, here's a survey, awesome, that Wes found by using ChatGPT. A 2025 survey of 2,385 global consumers revealed that over 90% are comfortable with brands using AI, and approximately 70% are likely to watch such videos. That very same survey found that 60% of respondents have a positive perceptions about brand in theory. However, it also says that about 76% of consumers are concerned about misinformation. That's, as it's in theory, we all get, I think it's the part we're still in the honeymoon phase of AI. Wow, I can't believe that AI, made that a cool piece of artwork that I can use for my website. And we're still in awe about the things that it can do. I'm surprised all the time when I have it do incredible things, whether I'm, having it help me design content or an outline for next podcasting ideas that I have, or, coming up with ideas for a marketing plan for a new client, or honestly, if I don't have access to a designer, because it's creative, I am not. If I'm trying to come up with a good color scheme or a branding package for a client, I can sit there and I can tell ChatGPT all the earthy vibes and elements, and here's the brand vibes and all the kind of stuff like that, and and it can pop up something, it can come up with some ideas. So, there's a lot of cool things like that can do, but when it comes back down to, how you feel when you see it, like, okay, this is amazing in theory, but if you see it, they go, oh, they didn't even take the time to actually write in the stuff. They just had GPT do their whole thing. Well, if I don't think a business spent any time to really put in the website, how do I know the lights are home, kind of a concept? Google Business, you go to the thing and they note they haven't updated their hours. Are they even still in business? Are they, do I trust this? Like, lights at home kind of concept too. So I think that, once again, as we utilize it as a tool instead of as a crutch, I think that people are okay with being using it that way. But if it's just clearly all done that way, just like something that's built all out of plastic.
We have one more question.
Sure.
And I think this is a good pitch for the next session here.
Cool.
What are the best prompt words to use?
That's a great question. That does absolutely go into our next one, where we'll be covering a little bit. But I will say, to answer that question in the way that I usually answer questions, and people usually dislike it, is, there's more than one way to skin a cat. Best prompt words, it depends on what you're trying to do. It really does. Context is really the key to it. But I think the question behind the question, and like I said, we'll get more into this later, but I'll give you kind of a cheat code that you can kind of play around with. Funny enough, the best prompt generator is actually ChatGPT. You tell it, hey, I need a prompt to ChatGPT, and I need it to do these things. Help me craft a prompt, and you tell it what you want it to do. ChatGPT is amazing at writing prompts for itself. Who knew? So that's my cheat code, honestly. And a lot of people do it. You don't always have to do it, because then you start understanding more and more. But who better to tell you what it wants? It's just like any kind of relationship, right? You go in going, hey, how can I be a better partner? Instead of asking Google, you could ask your partner, and then they'll tell you what they need. So kind of that same line. So I would say, if go around and test around and ask ChatGPT that same question and see what it says, because know thyself, and ChatGPT seems to. We got one more. It says, do the prompts make a difference in how real it sounds? It can. And we'll get into some strategies with that later, about like feeding it content, tone, voice, brand, things like that. There's a lot of good tips and tricks I can do. But yes, I would say that's probably it's the GIGO concept, garbage in, garbage out. The most important thing that you can do when writing a prompt is be choosy about what you're putting in. If you put in garbage, it's going to give you garbage. But if you put in a really well-crafted prompt that explains what you need, you're going to get something better.
All right. So the one thing I will say is that we're going to send out a post-attendee survey. We want your feedback on how the whole process went, registering, communication, how today went. The recording of this is available, like Taylor mentioned, in the chat, and it's available for anyone who didn't attend as well. They just need to reach out, and we can get them registered and send them the recording. So if you know of anyone that could benefit from this information, please send them our direction. But yeah, keep an eye on your email for a post-event survey. We would love your feedback. It just helps us continue to improve our workshops as we move forward. And hopefully we see you all next Thursday for the next session. Thanks, Scott.
Of course, we'll look forward to it.